Welcome to Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, where each week it's my great pleasure to meet fascinating people who tell us about the challenges they're facing with their work-life balance. I'm Dr. Ben Sinclair, and I wonder, do you struggle with your priorities? On the one hand, focusing on your work, business or career, namely your wealth, or on the other hand, looking after your health, which is so important. Over the past 20 years as a GP, I've seen many people spending too long on their screens, cutting corners on their sleep, diet or exercise. The result? Their work life's going well, but their health can suffer. I sincerely hope that my guests' personal and professional experiences may help you to improve your own health and life. My guest today is the fantastic Emma Hewitt, who is a prominent specialist in employment law at Sydney Mitchell, and she specialises in HR. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming, and because you're one of the region's most senior and experienced employment lawyers. So what made you choose to be a lawyer?
Well, it goes back to when I was quite young. I used to watch Kavanagh QC on the TV.
I remember that,
with family, yeah. And all those years ago, that prompted me to look into law and become a lawyer. However, he's not actually a solicitor. He's a barrister, and at that time I had no idea what the difference was.
Were you hoping to wear a wig?
Well, I think so. Until I learnt what it involved, which wasn't until future life. But yeah, it was always a solicitor, always law.
Fantastic. And I gather both of your parents worked pretty hard to keep a roof over your head, and you took various different jobs through your life. Tell me more about those different jobs that you've done.
Yeah, so I worked since I was 11, which started with a paper round with the local post office, delivering the paper. I did have to have my dad help me, though, at the weekends because the papers were quite big.
Those big bundles?
Absolutely, they were huge with all the inserts.
Did you do it like on a bike? Or?
I did it on a bike, and I had two bags across each shoulder.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a bit top heavy on the bike occasionally. And I also worked at Coventry indoor market. I worked at pubs and restaurants, worked at local hairdressers. I also delivered the paper for Coventry Evening Telegraph.
Wow, so you've got quite a spread of employment there.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing you've experienced some of the things that some of your clients might experience in different roles.
Absolutely. What I know now, if I'd have known back then, I could have done something about it. But you don't know the difference, do you, when you're a young person starting out in everyday life?
Wow, that's really empowering. And I guess, as you say, it's really important for people to know because knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Now, moving on to your upbringing and your youth. Sadly, you suffered a tragic family loss when you were 17.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that and how it affected you?
Yeah, so my dad was killed in a motorbike accident when I was 17. He was going to his second job, so he worked two jobs. He worked as a toolmaker in the day, and then at night he worked at Shire Foods, so rode his motorbike to work on an evening, and was unfortunately knocked off and killed.
So sorry.
So it was, out of the blue, one moment that they're there and the next minute they're not, so it was quite a horrid time. That
must have been quite traumatic, age 17, and I know you were keen to go to university. Did that affect your desire at that time?
I always wanted to go to university, but I suppose you look at things in a different light. Family was important. My dad worked very hard. I had a younger brother as well, so my brother is 5 years younger than me, and I sort of felt a degree of responsibility to look after the family and sort of stepped up. So I worked a lot more. My A-levels weren't really important, but I got there in the end, and I did go to university, and I'm really pleased with the way things went, although your focus is completely different at the time.
Now, you've triumphed over adversity, and you read law at Derby. How did you end up specialising in employment law?
Employment law wasn't the area that I really wanted to go into.
Okay.
I wanted to do family law. That was one of the areas I really wanted to have a go at. However, the firm that I did my training contract with didn't offer family law as an option, because you have to train in different areas, and I ended up doing so much employment law, I just naturally fell into it.
So you gravitated towards that, and
absolutely,
and that became your specialty.
Indeed.
Wow. Now, tell us more about employment law. You help employers, but you also work with individuals. How much of your work is legal advice and how much is supporting individuals?
The split is really difficult to explain. So I feel that most of my job is counselling. So it's 90% counselling and 10% law. You're helping people at the most horrific time of their lives. They are struggling. You know, people live to work, don't they? That it is their be all and end all. It's their roof over their head. It's their, holidays. It's everything to them. And that's being taken away, or some issues are arising. So it's, you do have to apply the law, obviously, but a lot of it is about talking to people through their emotions and the way they feel, and trying to fix their problems. I suppose that's what we as lawyers try to do. Try and fix the issues that have arisen.
And how stressful is that for you? I mean, you're dealing with desperate people. Do you feel that affects you too?
Of course, I'd be lying if I said it didn't. But my role and what I try to do is take on my clients' concerns, take on their issues and try and resolve them for them. You're talking to people at the most stressful time of their lives. I have clients crying on the phone all the time, and it's about trying to make them feel better. But on the other side of that, you have clients who have suicidal ideations. You're trying to help them at the hardest time of their lives, and it is really difficult, but their health and well-being is at the forefront of my mind and everything that I do.
Now, for those of you who are joining us now, I'm here with prominent solicitor Emma Hewitt, who's with Sydney Mitchell, specialising in employment law and HR. Emma, it's quite shocking to hear you talking about clients who are employees crying down the phone to you, having suicidal thoughts. Can you give the listeners some examples of the cases that you've come across like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we act for a wide variety of clients, and sometimes things do get too much for them. I've had a client who rung me explaining to me that he'd somehow wandered to the park, he'd got a knife in his hand, and was worrying about why he's here, what he's going to do. Also, I had another client who had rung me to tell me that he'd thought about how he was going to commit suicide. He told me that he thought about hanging himself from a tree, etc. So it does happen quite significantly in more ways than one. You do have, when I also act for employers, for example, they deal with employees who also have had suicidal thoughts, and it's trying to get the balance right and doing the right thing by individuals, but also the employer at the same time.
This is all quite extreme, sort of emotional stuff. How do you cope hearing all these stories?
It is hard, it's tough, but we're all human at the end of the day, and all it takes is somebody on the end of the phone just to talk to them, talk them down, have that conversation. We're not trained to do that, but it's my love of people that help me get through to them and have that conversation. It is difficult, but for my own health and well-being, I tend to go to the gym, go for a run, clear my head, which is the way I cope with things.
I often wonder if, and doctors are the same, we don't get any sort of counselling officially. Psychologists actually have to spend a quarter of the time they spend with their patients actually debriefing their own psychological health. And I often wonder whether we should have something similar for professionals who are exposed to this sort of thing. What do you think?
I think it'd be really helpful, because you do get people that don't know how to interact with individuals when they're at their deepest and darkest. But you also have, you have your client confidentiality that you have to maintain. You've got a duty to your client, and it's weighing it up as to what you should or should not be doing. But if you've got somebody on the phone in that real time, you need the skills to be able to deal with them. Otherwise, you'll end up worrying about what's happened if you ever get cut off.
And in the moment, I think it sounds very much like you're a natural with people. So it's good that you're in employment law, because those soft skills that often we're not taught
Yeah.
really come through. Now, you've told us eloquently about how you support employees. The other half of your job is the employers. How do you work with them to help them?
You work with employers quite closely. You're effectively their in-house legal, but they have a tough job ahead of them, because if you get something wrong, an employee is very quick to quote the law at an employer. Unfortunately, everybody seems to be a Google lawyer when it comes to issues affecting them in the workplace. They feel that they know what the answers are and how their employers should be treating them. I suppose as a doctor, you get the same when people diagnose themselves with all sorts.
We get Dr. Google. Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
Absolutely. So it's something that affects different businesses, different areas. However, the concept of employment law is really simple. You treat people how you expect to be treated yourself. It's a common sense approach. That's how people need to deal with individuals. If you're not going to like the way you deliver something or you're enforcing a policy, then all you need to do is sit back and think, well, if I wouldn't like that, why would I expect my employees to like that? So it's just about ensuring that you take that 5 minutes, think about it before introducing what needs to be introduced.
Now, thinking of the lockdown, another quite challenging and stressful time for us all, people began working at home. That must have been a big headache for employers.
Oh, absolutely.
And is that still causing problems at the moment?
It is, absolutely. COVID was a horrible time for everybody. Employment law saw so many changes over so many days so quickly. Clients thought I had a telephone line direct to Boris Johnson, to be honest, because the guidance was changing frequently and they'd be on the phone. But going forward to where we are now, there is a huge change in the way people have worked for the last 4 years now, as businesses are trying to call employees back into the office where everyone's had the free rein to work from home for as much as they like, for as long as they like. However, businesses are now asking people to come back into the office, whether it be 2 days a week or now seems to be the norm 3 days a week, whereas there's been quite a lot of pushback on that.
Interesting. I think there were some benefits of the sort of flexibility that came through.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin who used to live in Stockholm, and they were allowed to work from home long before the lockdown and seemed to have a much better work-life balance. But they also had more accountability with employers. If you did your job, it didn't really matter where you did it from. And I think this sort of newfound freedom for people working from home sometimes has perhaps resulted in less accountability. And there's a fine balance there between getting that balance between your sort of health and wealth and your life and your work, working from home, and satisfying the need to actually be productive. But I do think some people have benefited from that flexibility. Do you think that's been a help? I
do, but on the other side of that, I also think it's been detrimental to their own health because they are lone workers, they're working from home, they can feel isolated. I'm going to use my husband now as an example, who's probably going to hate me for this, but he worked from home Monday to Friday on his own, all day, every day, and it's not good because you'll come home and he'll be alone all day and he'll want to talk and he'll want to, and they're very encased.
It's isolating, isn't it?
Absolutely isolating. So when you're around people, that people are very different. They're very needy. Well, he was very needy. I'm using him as an example because it's the only one that I've got personally. But employees at home are lone workers.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it. I think you need that chemistry with people. So doing the podcast like this, it's great doing it face to face because you get that human chemistry of spark off each other, and that somehow feeds us and nourishes us and sort of satisfies that need for human connection. But it's very hard to get that in lockdown. We felt so cut off, so isolated. All the messages were stay away, don't touch anyone, keep away. So it almost reinforced that isolation.
Yes, it did. It did.
It was a strange time we've all been through, and it also had profound effects on our lifestyle. We're in the Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben podcast. It's all about balancing life and work and our habits. So let's come to you a bit more if we can. So you're a busy working lady, you have children. How do you balance your sort of need for nutrition and sleep whilst you're so busy?
Okay, so yes, full-time work day job, full-time work, home job with 2 children.
So 2 careers then?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 full-time jobs.
Full-time mum, full-time lawyer.
Absolutely. I like to challenge myself.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. So what I tend to try and do to help with my health and wealth and well-being is I train, I go to the gym, I see a personal trainer that helps me set my goals, my achievements. I track everything that I do through a fitness app with food and so on and so forth.
There's quite a lot of accountability there then with that.
Absolutely. If I didn't do that, I'd probably eat more than what I probably should.
Yeah. Or maybe skip the exercise that you should be doing.
Absolutely.
But the devices can't lie, can they? Because they track everything these days.
Absolutely not. No, nor can weights and measurements either.
No, and when you have a PT, they, when you're getting that sort of weigh in, I do one every 3 months.
Yeah.
It does keep you on track.
It does. So that helps with my health. Sleep-wise, I'm not a great sleeper. I probably don't sleep as much as I should. That's an area that I struggle with. Okay,
and you're rating yourself. What would you rate your overall sort of well-being score?
I'd say I was an 8.
Okay,
yeah.
but you struggle with sleep, and we know on the show that sleep is a really important part of health and well-being. Mm-hmm. So I may have to dial down your 8 if you're struggling with it. So maybe we can bring you back and have a rematch and see if it's improved.
Okay.
I just wrote an article for a magazine called the Business Influencer magazine, which is all for professionals and people in business, about how to sort of succeed and overcome and balance these things out. And it's really interesting that sleep is such an important part of success and performance. So let's do a deep dive into your sleep, and if I may help you with anything that might improve it. I don't know. Okay. So it's not just the hours, but how many hours are you getting a night?
I'd say anywhere between 4 to 5, depends how the night's been, to be honest.
And what influences how the night's been?
How busy I am.
Okay. So it's busyness that sort of eats into that actual sleep opportunity?
Yes.
So, and you've got 2 careers, let's not forget. So you're a mum and you're a lawyer. Did the children sort of encroach on your time to get to sleep?
Not really, no. It's more trying to get things done whilst they're asleep.
Okay, so while they're asleep, you've got the golden opportunity.
Absolutely.
What are you trying to get done in that time?
All the other things that I can't get done during the week when I'm working full time.
Right. Okay, so get more granular. What kind of thing? Is this housework or
it's housework, sorting, tidying, cleaning. Yeah, sometimes work as well. So sometimes I'll have to log on and do some work.
So you're a busy lady.
Indeed.
A lot of pressure on your time. So what we need is really good quality sleep. Mm-hmm. If we're going to have a short amount of sleep, it's good to have good quality. Do you track your sleep? Are you wearing some sort of tracker watch?
I do, yes, but I take it off when I go to bed.
Okay,
yes.
do you not like the feel? Or?
No, it irritates me.
Irritates you, okay, yeah. So we can't track it, but we may be able to sort of work out when you first pick up your phone. Mm-hmm. And on some phones, they've got a thing that tells you how many pickups you've done, where the first one was. So you might measure the time that the phone's down or something to get an idea of what your habits are. At Dr. Finley's, we love tracking things because it helps us to sort of understand what's going on. But if we're going to have a short amount of sleep, we need to make it sure it's really good quality. Mm-hmm. How would you rate your sleep quality in this short period that you're getting?
It depends. Sometimes it's quite light, sometimes it's quite deep, and I wake up and think, oh, I've had a really good night's sleep.
Do you wake up feeling refreshed?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
And have you got any idea what triggers would stop you from getting a good, refreshing night's sleep?
Noise.
Okay. Yeah.
Light.
Yeah. So you've got like blackout blinds at home?
We have, yes. My daughter has to sleep with the landing light on.
Uh-huh.
So that's...
And the doors open?
We have windows above our bedroom doors, so the light comes through.
Can you block that little window?
Probably could, actually. Never
Worth
not
doing.
Really thought about it. Yeah.
There we go. So sometimes we can find something because we're objective, but it's definitely worth doing because light stimulates the brain and wakefulness. So we always say a dark, calm, quiet environment is the best place to get a good night's sleep. So that's certainly worth a thought of blocking out that little bit there. You could paint it out, you could just put something over it. And actually, to get better sleep, if you expose yourself to sunlight as much as possible. The back of your eye picks up that light and then produces melatonin, which helps you to sleep more deeply and is released at the right time when it gets dark.
Okay.
So exposure to bright sunlight is a good idea if you can.
Book more holidays.
More holidays. Or, do you like walk or drive to work, or how do you get
I drive to work.
Yeah.
I drive to work. I probably should get out at lunchtime, but I tend to work whilst I'm eating my lunch, which is perhaps not a good idea.
I'm definitely downgrading your well-being.
You are indeed.
A couple of points off there. So, but I think if you were able to walk a little bit of your commute to work in the morning, you get more sunlight exposure, a little bit of steps in, a little bit of exercise, which your PT would love.
Absolutely.
And you would sort of process yourself into work. So it might be worth taking a different form of transport or stopping and walking a bit of the way. So you might, if you're taking the bus, stop 2 stops early and briskly walk the rest of the way. Or if you take a car and park somewhere else and walk the rest of the way. Or if you can, cycle some of the way or something like that. So that might be something to do, because it's all going to help the quality of your sleep and recovery. Other things that can influence it. Talk to me about screens. You must be answering emails and that kind of thing. When do you put your devices down for sleep time?
As soon as I go to bed.
So just before going to bed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you know the studies on blue light emissions?
Yes, because I use that when I talk to my son about playing on his games or consoles or TV before bed. So I know a little bit about it, but not enough.
Okay. So one way around that is you can wear blue blocking glasses because they reduce the blue light. The other thing is you can turn down the blue light on the phone, go to sort of night mode or evening mode, which is more red based, because blue light really interferes with deep restorative sleep. It stimulates the body to wakefulness.
Okay.
So that might be something. The ideal is to put devices down 2 hours before you want to go to sleep. So it's something to aim for.
Yeah, so no checking emails.
No checking emails. Because again, if we're looking at work, that's a problem. And keeping the phone out of the bedroom, keeping the laptop out of the bedroom. So, the bedroom is a place of rest, not work.
Yeah.
What's on your bedside table?
A lamp, a phone charger, a watch charger, and books.
And the books, what are they about?
Parenting.
Okay, so we have the same thing. Yeah. So a trick I had was to try and exchange any books that are sort of practical with things that are relaxing. So my life coach said to me, right, what have you got? And I've got these business development books and personal development books and parenting books for boys. And they were like, right, well, so I got rid of all of them. I put them in my study and I've only got novels now. Now, I've read a lot more, but actually I find I get to sleep better because I'm not tempted to look into things at a time when I don't need to. Yeah. So put the self-help books somewhere else. And I would also challenge you whether you might even put your phone charger physically somewhere else so that it's out of the bedroom, out of reach. Yeah. At least 3 meters away from you, because that electrical field that it generates isn't great for you as you sleep either. Okay. So these are things to aim for, not to beat ourselves up with for everyone. So don't be worried about that. But it's all these little possible things that might help the quality of sleep. Tell me about caffeine and your relationship to caffeine.
Okay, so I drink black coffee.
Okay.
A lot through the day.
Okay.
And then on an evening, I'll have a decaffeinated tea.
That's very good. So you decaf in the evening.
Yeah.
Do you know the half-life of coffee?
No.
So this is the bit that shocked me, because as a junior doctor, I was fed coffee to keep going in these 100-hour weeks. And I ended up getting the jitters when I wasn't drinking coffee and feeling a bit unwell. Coffee has a 12-hour half-life, or caffeine. So that means 12 hours after you've had a coffee, half of it is still in your system. Okay. So if you have a coffee at midday, at noon, half of that will be in your system at midnight. Okay. And we wonder why we're struggling to get good sleep. It's pushing up blood pressure, it's raising your heart rate. All these things help, if you lower them, help your recovery. So if you track your recovery on your watch and in the daytime, if you stop drinking caffeine at noon and went decaf then, you might get a better night's sleep, and certainly deeper, and probably not so much light sleep.
Yeah.
So that might be something to think about.
Definitely.
Hard to do, but I ended up doing a couple of coffees because there's benefit of with a couple of coffees, there's actually good benefit. So it's antioxidant, so anti-cancer, anti-infection, stimulates the brain. And that can be really good. But I try to drink like sort of herbal stuff after 12 or hot water. So it's worth looking into caffeine.
Indeed.
What's the response to that? Did you know about the whole...
No, I didn't know. I thought
thing?
If I've stopped having a coffee around about mid-afternoon, 3 o'clock-ish, that the caffeine would be out of my system by the time, which is why I had decaf tea when I'm at home. So, no, I had no idea about that. It's new to me.
It's a really interesting thing, and we don't look at the labels because we're too busy, but even things like green tea that people think are healthy have a lot of caffeine in. So if you're talking herbal, you've got to go sort of really decaf. And even decaf stuff still has caffeinated in, it just has less.
Yes.
So again, you've got to try and really take your head off and really, put it back on again, decaf way.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's, I'm jumping around a bit, but the last thing I would say is about what you eat and take. Do you take any vitamins or supplements or anything like that at all?
Occasionally when I remember. I do take multivitamins, but other than that, not really.
So part of this is eating the right stuff to fuel ourselves. And with sleep, we always recommend not eating too late, because that then means your stomach's busy digesting.
Yeah, not very good at that.
Keeps you awake, which is really hard. So I would encourage you to try and eat with your children, eating a healthy thing with them. Easier said than done, because they don't like vegetables, do they?
No.
So micro veg, but also not too late, because otherwise our tummies are still busy working and they stop us from sleeping. The other thing is supplements and foods that contain magnesium. So there's a lot of magnesium in things like green veg, and that can be really helpful. So if you take magnesium before bed, you'll often get a better night's sleep, and it's good for aches and pains.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So that might be a benefit as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lastly, to boost your melatonin production, cherries. Do you like cherries?
I do like cherries.
Excellent.
I do indeed.
Good. Well, so they're actually a natural source of natural melatonin, and they can boost mood and sleep. So you might eat some cherries with your evening meal, which set you up for a better night's sleep.
Indeed. Sounds good.
There we go. So I've bombarded you with loads of things. Of those, which ones do you think you might want to try? Like if you're going to pick one.
Reduce the amount of coffee.
Okay.
I think is a given. Magnesium sounds... It's not the first time I've heard about magnesium. I've had a few people at the gym talk about taking magnesium and sleeping better. But I think reducing the light in the bedroom as well, I'm going to do that.
That's quite a physical one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And maybe eat earlier if possible.
You've just given yourself a great health prescription for a better night's sleep.
Absolutely.
So it's been so interesting talking to you. You might come back and tell us in a few months' time how you got on.
Indeed, yeah, happy to.
Thank you so much for coming in. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. So I do hope you enjoyed today's episode of Health versus Wealth with Dr. Ben, and I hope it may help you improve your life and health. You can also take one easy step by achieving that right now by subscribing free on your usual podcast platform. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me on podcast@drfinlays.co.uk. I hope you'll join me again, but for now it's goodbye from me, Dr. Ben.